Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Licensed Psychologist. Now, what? This is your host, Dr. Liliana Garcia. And today is my pleasure and honor to have a guest that I've interviewed for the other podcast, but not for this one. It's the amazing Andrea Vargas, and she's a licensed, is it an MH mental health counselor? Yes, in Florida, and a really sought out therapist. She's full. She has a lot of clients, and right now there's so many kids struggling, and her approach, I think it's really good because I've seen you in pictures of your office and in terms of the play therapy and your personality. I bet that a lot of those children's, even when it was online, because I don't know if you're doing in person, probably felt like very attuned to you and your style. So thank you for coming into this other podcast.
Thank you for having me again. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah. How's the weather in Florida today?
It is tolerable. It's not as humid and hot as it has been. So this is our fall. So it's tolerable.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you tell this new audience about you, your services, and what do you love the most about it?
Okay. So as you mentioned, I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I am also a registered play therapist, and I'm EMDR trained. And I work with children ages 3 and up. I like to say work with people whose frontal lobe is not completely developed yet. So 3 up to like early 20s. So I do enjoy that wide range. Obviously, because I work with kids, I work very close with the parents, the family, and the schools. Although the schools are a little hesitant now with everything that's going on, but I love just working with kids, connecting and entering their world through play, and then helping parents understand their kids better, because as a mom, I know that if you understand your child and someone guides you in what you can do to help them even better and support them, then that makes you feel good as a parent. And if the child feels supported, then that child flourishes. And so that's what I love. And then all of that strengthens the connection between the child and the parent. So I love that. I love, and I'm working with parents and kids, and there's giggles and there's like all this eye contact. It's like gives me all the warm and fuzzy. So that's my favorite part of my work.
I love it. I love it. I even got here too. Yeah. In terms of how, important it is as a mom as well. And you have 2 children, right?
Yes.
Yes. And I bet that both of them are very different.
Very, oh my goodness, like night and day.
Yeah. So when you mentioned that aspect of helping the parents as well to learn about their children so they can help them flourish, that I wonder if this is one of the things that it's hard for some parents to kind of like swallow the pill of, oh, each one of them is different. I cannot parent all of my children the same way. So how do you handle when that happens, when they're like a little resistant?
It's a lot, because I think that under all of that, it's just a parent who wants to have their child succeed, right? And to be happy. And sometimes that looks different in kids. There's going to be that one child that you don't need to prompt to do homework, but maybe they're not as social and maybe they need a little bit more of that, or then there's the child that needs a lot of motivation academically or extra support, but they are a social butterfly. So I don't know where I read this quote, but it's really just to kind of summarize how nicely it is. It's like, just because you have a child, it doesn't mean that they are yours or their life is yours. You bring kids to this world and you are there to provide, the support, and they're going to eventually, choose their destiny and their path, right? So it can be challenging. I think a lot of times parents also, because of their own upbringing, whether they want to go completely opposite of what they were raised or how they were raised, or maybe they feel like the way that they were raised is the ideal. So kind of helping them see that, or how that all plays into their parenting, because I mean, you're a mom, we're going to get triggered by by stuff when we're parenting, especially. We'll hear things come out of our mouth saying, oh my goodness, I didn't want to have to say this because I hated when my parents would say this to me. And then, especially after this year, everybody gets a pass because it's just been a lot.
Oof, I hear you. I hear you. And it's been so intense. I feel like there's so many populations that are very well impacted. And one of them is caregivers. Like today, as I'm recording these, my husband took our youngest out for a walk because the babysitter called in and she's, calling sick. So my oldest in school, but then little one is here. So we're like juggling in between our work. And those things are, people that don't have children or taking care of anyone, they might not have to experience any of those extra layers of complications.
Yes. Parents, especially, stereotypically, moms have been pushed to multitask on this extreme level that, my heart goes out to moms.
Yeah. And you're one as well.
Yes.
Yes. Are yours in school already, or?
My oldest one should be in 3rd grade this year. My daughter would have started kindergarten, but last year I did another crazy thing and decided that I was going to homeschool. So so I'm a homeschool teacher by day and therapist by afternoon, and then trying to be a normal person at the end of the day after all of that.
Wow, that is another podcast. I bet that whole experience, I might contact you. I've considered here and there homeschooling, especially after all the difficulties this last years. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Woo. Okay. We already went in. I was like, we're going to start slow. And then no, we went in. So in terms of your journey to become not only a child therapist, but the play-based, like what was it that made you want to seek that out? Because I know there are a lot of, which is ironic, but there's a lot of child therapists that are not certified or taking trainings on play-based.
Right. I think for me, it started as a child. Like I myself, I kind of laugh at this because I had gone to therapy when I was little through the school. And I was probably one of the worst clients, quote unquote, because I refused to talk to my therapist. I didn't want to do anything. So I just sat there and colored. And so that was like my first experience with therapy. And then I think I remember picking up a book somewhere on child abuse. And then I remember reading that and my stomach kind of like turning like, wow, like kids get treated like this, how horrible, and who helps them, so that was another thing. I think I was about 10. And then I think I saw a Lifetime movie on child sexual abuse, and then
Lifetime, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I think my mom was watching and I caught a glimpse of it, and I was so intrigued by, the therapist in the show or in the movie, help the little girl kind of process all of that with like anatomically correct dolls. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is so cool. And I got a peek at her office. It was like a playroom. So all of those, and I'm like, I don't want to be a child therapist. And when I was in graduate school, I never was really interested in working with adults. I've always, had a soft spot for kids, and that's what I wanted to do. So in graduate school, we did our practicum and they had a playroom. And I was, one of those when you walk in and it's like, this is what I've been wanting to do. I got my first client, and it was a little kindergartner struggling with behavior issues at school. And I kind of maybe instinctively felt like I'm not going to talk to this little kindergartner about, well, how do you have to behave and what's going on, because she was so little, right? So I just set up like a classroom with these little stuffed animals, and we kind of role played, kind of being silly. And so I engaged her, and we practiced how to not get in trouble, what you needed to do, raise your hand, share or whatever. And and I saw that it helped. And I remember the smile. I came in for therapy, and my supervisor at the time said, "You're doing play therapy," because we had to record this. This is back in when we had
Right.
VCR and stuff like that. So we played the VHS tape for my supervisor and said, "Let's play therapy." And I'm like, "Wait, that's a thing?" Like, I didn't even know what that was. And then she's like, "Yeah." And so I looked it up, and little by little, I got training in it. And it is a very expensive process. But for me, it didn't make sense to do child therapy without the play therapy component.
I agree. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I remember technically I'm a trained child therapist. I prefer more a little bit more advanced frontal lobe teenagers or preteens that are already in the making sense of abstract thinking to like, adolescents and young adults. But I had cases that they were younger and I'm like, oh my God, like, yes, I could do those sheets and work with the parents, but without a playroom or with all those skills, I think it's so, so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. And and then you had children on your way of becoming or after?
No, after I maybe like 5 years after I was, no, wait, maybe like 6 or 7 years. I don't even know.
Okay.
But it was a while. Like, I was a child therapist working on, getting trained as a play therapist. And technically that was kind of a disadvantage, I think, because a lot of parents wanted to know if I was a parent, right? And I'm not going to lie. No, I'm not a parent. I worked with a lot of kids. And I have to admit, it would get frustrating because they said, well, then you don't understand. And now that I'm a mom, I get it, because it's so easy to say to a parent, hey, do this, do this, do that. And then I get to go home and I don't have to do any of that. And I use my experience as a mom. I'm very honest with my clients and I say, I get it. You can't do all of this 24/7. You can't be the perfect parent. No one is a perfect parent. There's mom guilt, and then there's play therapist mom guilt. Like at night, I'm like, what did I do? I should have done. Okay, no, I'm human. Like, it's okay. You have to go through my positive self-talk, and again, you're throwing it in there on this whole year and a half. I mean, just you surviving, your kids are alive. That's enough, I think, for most people.
You're sharing kind of like pieces of how I see my story as well. I think I was a licensed psychologist or operated as a psychologist for like 5 or 6, again, working with mostly teenagers because I would ask my supervisor, please don't give me anyone less than 11 or 12. And I had here and there like a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, and stuff like that. But I remember always feeling that disadvantage. And then having a lot of colleagues that are like, well, I don't have children, but I have all these trainings and still feeling like there was a piece of me that I did not know. I still feel like I love working with teens, but my oldest is 6. So I'm like, I bet that when my oldest is a teenager, a lot of the things that I shared, even though I always integrated, I feel like I like to integrate the parents and really like empathize with them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would shift because right now I'm like, whoa, 6-year-olds, because 6-year-olds parents and it's an important discussion because I know a lot of therapists get offended if they don't have children or partners and they're doing therapy work, couples work or something, and people kind of question that and they'll go
Right.
like the ego kicks in like, but I have all these trainings, I have all these certifications. Yeah, but you don't have the overwhelming experience of taking care 24/7
Right. Right. Right.
of
It's a
someone
different,
else.
yeah, it's a different I also think as a parent, there's so much unsolicited advice out there
Right.
that I think, and especially now where everything is thrown at you on social media, like, oh, 5 steps to do this and
Right.
3 tips to do that. And I think as a parent nowadays, I think you're also a little bit more defensive, like, come on, please no more, of this pressure. And then if your child therapist isn't skilled in how to weave in the suggestions or the recommendations or in a way that is not blaming the parent, but more like, you're also a person and you have, needs, and I can understand how you're frustrated with this.
Mhm.
And then helping them, you know, kind of connecting with the parent in a way as well, right? And
Yes.
because, another thing, we want to be heard. I mean, most moms, who listens to moms, right? So kind of allowing the parent to share, to have a space to talk about, their struggles, and stuff, that how things that may be going on in her life at that point may be affecting her, and then saying, that's okay. So we're going, and I think kids are very forgiving, to be honest. If we make a mistake, we can easily go in there and say, I'm sorry, mommy was frustrated and I might have snapped at you and you didn't deserve that. I'm sorry, or you repair. um so helping parents, feel heard and seen, right?
Hmm.
Helps them kind of put their guard down and then are ready to listen, and they know that
Yeah.
you're just really there to help.
Yes. And you mentioned something that really kind of stuck in my mind in terms of, when you're laying in bed and you're like, oh my God, I did all those things. How do you manage besides, you mentioned like self-talk and all that. How do you manage that guilt that comes like, oh, shoot, I actually, I know what technique I should have done. And whoa, that went that way.
Right, right. I have a lot of therapist mom friends, so we kind of, reach out to each other, and then we're there, yeah, but we're human, and it's nice to hear that, like, okay. And then they can say, well, this happened and I did that and I wanted to like hide because I shouldn't have done that. So, finding your own support system, even if it's just a text message. Nowadays we don't have time for much more, but
Right.
even if it's just a text message, to kind of vent to
Yeah.
someone and have them not judge you and
Mhm.
support you, because we need that. All
Mm.
of us need that.
Oh, yeah. So community, it's a big one. Supportive
Mm-hmm.
community, because you can have community and they're not supportive. Supportive community is someone that really gets you. So I
Mm-hmm.
hear that. And what are some of the continued struggles or, hurdles that you experience balancing mom in a pandemic, homeschooling now, your practice?
Yeah, yeah. It's maybe like when we I was doing telehealth, trying to figure out a schedule that worked for my clients, but also for me. My husband thankfully has a pretty flexible, understanding job, but he still has to do that 9 to 6 or 9 to 5 job. So balancing all of that out, and then, just the timing of it all. I think I finally had my dream office. 2 weeks into my dream office, COVID hit, and I'm like, oh, what do I do? And you mentioned telehealth, trying to just rework my brain, and okay, how do I get this child to engage for at least 30 minutes, and then I could talk to the parents after, because we're competing with like YouTubers that are very
Right.
entertaining. So
Right.
that was
Unboxing.
exhausting. Yeah, yeah. And
Unboxing.
then, and then the homeschooling is a whole other world that you also have to do like a paradigm shift on what is important for them to learn, how tailoring the activities and the lessons to my son, who is not the most attentive person, and then my daughter, who is like quick but like has all this energy. And yeah, so been a rough road, and I've
Wow.
probably got some COVID highlights, that I like to call them COVID highlights, during this entire year.
Yeah, it's still going. And I know I saw you with the outdoor, I think it was, how many was the list that you?
Oh, we attempted to complete a challenge called the 1,000 hours outside.
Yeah.
um and I had looked into that before COVID, but then during COVID there wasn't much to do indoors. So busy kids, even just for us to be outside and just breathe fresh air and just take a break from all of the running around and trying to multitask. So that was nice.
Mm,
Been nice
yeah.
to do.
Yeah. I'm wondering, I don't know if you want to share it, but what got you into like taking the leap of the homeschooling?
Um, at the end of the school year, when COVID hit, my son was in first grade and he got really lucky with an amazing teacher. She was amazing. He was doing really good, but the online was just a disaster. I couldn't, I mean, we were all stressed out, and the school didn't obviously have enough time to organize things, and things weren't flowing, and it was like tears, frustration. My daughter was on preschool virtual somewhere. She is something else. She was skipping school, going on YouTube. I'm like, I hear her, and I'm like, I can't deal with that right now. My husband's trying to work from home. It was a mess, and I noticed, sadly, how behind my kid was, really, because I was with him doing things, and I'm like, he's not grasping it because he doesn't have the attention span for it. So again, the community, right? Some Facebook mom groups, people are talking about homeschool, and I'm like, could I do that? I took the whole summer to kind of really think about it, right? Then there's a lot of nature-based kind of play that we did over the summer, some activities, and I saw that he really loves science. He likes to be hands-on, and wow, he's focused and he knows all these facts. Like, he walks around and you can ask him about an animal and he'll tell you all the facts. And my husband's not the nature type guy, and he's like, what? I'm like, believe him, because he's the one who knows all that stuff. I can't possibly fit all that information in my head, but he does. And then with my daughter, she tagged along, and she just in there for the ride, and she likes it. And so yeah, and he loves it. He doesn't want to go back. Like, I tell him, okay, so next year, no, I'm not going back. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take it one day at a time and see what happens. So yeah, finding a curriculum that works for them and kind of fits in my schedule, my time, my style. So semi-structured. I can't follow a total like protocol type thing, but I also don't want them online. I don't want them with too many worksheets. I want to be able to really have them enjoy. So we've read so many books. My son wakes up now. He reads a book before breakfast. I mean, the house has calmed down with the rush in the morning, the rush after school. They get a lot of free play, which is super important for kids, especially now with all of the stress going on. He still complains, and I look at him like, are you serious right now? Do you want to take a walk across the street where the kids are in school? No. Okay. I'm like,
oh my goodness, the complaining and the whining stage right now is where we are with my 6-year-old, and it's hard, like days that he's able to like go and play with the neighbor and then play with me Nintendo Switch, and still is complaining because we didn't do that one thing that he wanted also to do. And it's like, oh my God, we need to talk about gratitude.
Exactly. Yeah. And I get like really scientific with my son. Like, that there was a study that if you wake up and you're grateful, your brain actually changes, and if you complain, every time you complain, your brain gets full of toxins and stuff. Like, I mean, I don't know if that was really research that I read, but I kind of tried to, kind of water it down for him. And his eyes open up. Okay, I'm gonna try. You're allowed 3 complaints a day. I can't anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope, I don't know if my youngest would also, but if that happens, I'll have to figure it out. But that is so emotionally taxing for parents. We're talking about one little thing, but can take us out of our wave of, like comfort zone, tolerance, window of tolerance.
Yes.
The over complaining, the things, or you didn't put the ketchup how they wanted, and all these little things that people sometimes don't talk about, what is about parenting.
Yes.
And those things can take us out of the edge so fast.
Yes. And then, or the time when you like make the effort to do a really fun activity, you have this in your mind, like, this is going to be great. And then they start fighting or this, and you're just like, you should have just stayed home.
Yes.
So that does happen sometimes, but
what helps you the most to handle that in the moment or even after?
Sometimes just taking a deep breath, looking at my husband like, you need to take over because I'm going to explode and I need to go now. Sometimes, if I'm not as dysregulated, right, I could say, okay, so what's going on here? Let's take a deep breath. Let's notice. I do this thing with my daughter, who she sometimes goes from 0 to 100, and you do like the hand model, and I'm like, calm your brain. It's so funny because she's like, I'm calming, I'm trying to calm my brain. Like, calm your brain because I don't understand anything you're saying, and we're just trying to have fun. Or he told you that he put your toy there. It's not lost. It's right there. But calm your brain so you can listen. I can only imagine if there's people around like, calm your brain. Like, what is this lady telling her kids, right?
Yeah.
So hashtag when your mom is a play therapist, this is the type of stuff that you grow
Oh
up
my
saying.
goodness. Yes. I haven't used that. I use it with clients, but I haven't used it with my children. I'm going to like, bring it. And, yeah. What would be a message that you have for other caregivers, moms that are being a therapist during this crazy time?
I again, it's the ultimate goal is balance, right? And then just taking a step back and remembering why you're doing this all. I remember when I was in college, I worked for a psychologist, right? And I was front desk, and I saw she had like the best schedule, 7 to 1 or something like, or 8 to 1, and then she was done, right? And she was able to take her kids to school and pick them up from school, and maybe she worked like one evening a week. I'm like, that is awesome. That's why that's a plus for being a therapist and having your own private practice, and you can move that around for your benefit. And then when you feel like you can spend time with your kids, that does fill your cup as a mom, right? And so sometimes we want to do all the trainings, we want to help all of our, but if we don't fill our own cup first, we're not going to be able to help others. And then that's when it starts to get, difficult or more difficult. So just kind of taking a step, like, why is it that I'm doing this again? Oh, because I want to. Yes, I want to help people, but I also want to be there with my family, And then if you take care of yourself, then you can calm your brain and then be calm
Right.
and more present with your kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So important. I know one thing that has helped me significantly was letting go of my schedule. Like simple practice, I open it and people schedule it. I only do it with my older clients that are not that techie, but I did that after maternity leave because with Luna, I had her in the midst of the beginning of the pandemic when we thought we were all going to die kind of. And yeah, I released the schedule and made a schedule that accommodates to us. And that is so important. Because that traditional, like working every evening for some families like mine, it doesn't work. Or so, but I think what you're sharing is so important as for those listeners, really find what works for you, for your family, and for your clients. Yes. It's not all about one side. It's at the little balance.
Right. And another thing to kind of add to that, because I know that, for some of us that work with certain populations, we feel like maybe we're more we have to work certain hours because they are not going to come at those hours. When my son started kindergarten, I had to switch my schedule because I wasn't going to be able to see him after school because I was going to be working. And it was scary, but I made room for, I'm not going to work every afternoon. I'm going to, split it up, and I'm going to see clients during the day. And if they want to come see me, they're going to come and see me. If not, then I'm not the therapist for them. Right. And that was, when people started coming during the day, I'm like, oh, it's really happening. I'm going to be okay. And I was, and then pandemic hit and everything else changed. But,
right.
Sometimes we think, we have to accommodate our schedule for, our client's schedule, because if not, we're going to lose them. And if they really want to work with you because you're the type of therapist that they want, you have the training, you have the skills, and they just like you, they'll figure it out. I mean, we do that. If we have a dentist that we love for our kid, we will wait and we will go at whatever time they tell us to go because we know that that's going to work for us, right?
Yes.
Not everybody's going to be able to do that, but
Mm-hmm. But that
yeah.
is so important because again, there's a lot of homeschooling parents as well that they can take their kids during the day. There's
Mm-hmm.
children that schools have different hours. There's so many out there. And I think what you're sharing is so important because when you start as a therapist, a lot of other therapists have these sayings and myths that really are based in scarcity mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
like you only have to work, oh, you got into this profession, you like kind of like get ready to work weekends and in the evenings. And some people do that. And I don't. And I attract either entrepreneurs or people that have flexibility in the schedule that they schedule me at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 noon. And I'm like,
Right.
this works. So
Yeah.
yeah. And when you do that, besides calming your brain, you're also like, it's kind of like a way of building a regenerative business because you're being fed to it and you're
Mm-hmm.
being supported in your capacity. So then you can be even a better therapist because we
Exactly.
forget about that. We're like, oh, let's
Mm-hmm.
accommodate, but then you're not coming as your full self.
Exactly. Exactly. And then also even to that, how do you sit there and tell moms you got to take care of yourself, and here you are working every single evening, you got to be there for your
Yes.
kids, and then you don't see your own. It's like, wait, I need to practice what I preach.
Oh, that part was what took me out for building my business because I was trained as a child therapist. And then when I started having children and I know the importance of the first 5, 7 years, I'm like, I'm working so much. This doesn't make any sense. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
being with my children. I'm paying babysitters and people to raise my children. And I mean,
Right.
I know some people have to do that for circumstances. And I was able to figure out and move different things and then build a business that is making kind of almost the same money that I was making as a 40-week working for someone else. There's ways. When there's a will, for the most part, you can find a way.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
both here sharing.
Yes. And I think it's all about that doubt, you know. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm scared, what if it doesn't, and I have to shout out to my husband. I don't know if he'll listen to this podcast, but he's the one like, what do you mean you can't homeschool? That's what you did anyway. Um, during the whole virtual
Right.
thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. He's like, what do you mean you can't go into private practice? Why not? Just go, just do it. I'm like, oh, okay, and it's so comforting to have somebody in your corner, so find,
Mm,
if it's not your spouse, whoever it is, there's someone out there that's going to support you and motivate you. And just
mm,
also people in the field, there's a lot of thankfully to social media, people that you follow and you're like, hey, she's about my age, yeah, she has kids, she does this, she seems like she's doing it, okay, so why can't I do it? Like, what's going on?
mhm.
So that helps.
Yeah, and asking them because a lot of they want to share what
Mm-hmm.
they did. It's like a pay forward. Because I asked
Yes.
so many people, and I still ask things. Hey, how are you doing that? How are you doing this? It's like some people go like, "Oh, how do you learn all about Instagram?" I'm like, I didn't. I mean, I'm part of like memberships and stuff, but sometimes I ask people like, "Hey, I saw that you did this way, and can you share with me if you use an app or something?" And they
Mm-hmm.
share it, and you're
Yes.
like, "Oh, cool."
Uh-huh. Yeah, definitely. I had somebody reach out to me not too long ago. How did you stop taking insurance and move to private pay? I got a business coach. Oh, really? Which one? Here you go. Go for it. Best of luck to you. She has two little boys, of course, you
Mm,
know?
so important. Oh my God. I feel like this conversation of balancing personal and family and all that is so important for therapists because this is not something that we don't take a class in it. We don't take trainings in it. And it's our life. We're
Mm-hmm.
humans. Sometimes we think we're not, but we're human. But I notice in the time. So let's go into the fire round questions. So it's complete the sentence.
Okay.
My unique and special gift is,
Healing through play.
hmm, I am reclaiming.
Oh, reclaiming. That one I was thinking about. Let's see. Maybe that fierce little girl I used to be when I was when you were in kindergarten and you didn't let anybody mess with you, I'm reclaiming my 5-year-old self.
I no longer subscribe to
Trying to fix or help, and this is not professionally, but more personally, people that are just not ready.
Oh, that's a big one for therapists. Yeah. If my ancestor would speak, they would say,
I'm proud of you.
And my wish for you is?
Meaning my wish for the audience?
For the audience, yeah.
Okay. My wish for you is that you too find that spark that you may have lost or is still there, and just go for it.
Yes. Oh, this was so yummy. And thank you. And can you share with us if you have any current or upcoming offerings, and where can people find you?
One of the things about homeschooling and having a solo private practice, I have all these ideas, but I have noticed that I'm not going to have time for them. So right now, no very specific offerings outside of therapy, because as you mentioned, I'm full. So this month I'm taking a couple of new clients. My website, you can find out more information there. You can book a phone consultation, Andrea Vargas, LMHC.com, and then Instagram, the same thing, Andrea Vargas LMHC, and Facebook, Andrea Vargas LMHC.
That is so amazing that you're like, I have all this idea, but not now because I can't. My cup is full. And sometimes that is one of the best decisions to make. So thank you for sharing. This was so helpful. Any last thoughts or anything that you would like?
Oh, on Friday, I'm taking over Latinx Therapy's Instagram account. So that should be fun. I'll be talking about children's mental health. So I'm excited about that.
When this episode comes, I think you're ready. That would have passed. But anyhow, congratulations. And go over there. Probably she might save them as a highlight. I don't know.
Probably. Yeah. It's for Latin or Latinx Hispanic Heritage Month. So
yes. Oh, thank you for everything. And I'm looking forward to seeing, how you continue to uphold and those boundaries and growth for you and for your family. And I might contact you for homeschooling information down the road.
One day at a time, right? We're trying to figure it all out.
That's so true. Thank you so much.